so. If everybody is fine with English, then it is not needed. All right. Okay, so I will say that we support this initiative, and it is something very new, I guess, here. And I will give just a word to those we invited. And we will start with Esteban Servat, who is a campaigner for this initiative, and he comes from Argentina. He has been traveling a lot of places now to make aware of this campaign, and maybe you can tell us what this campaign is about, Esteban. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. So thank you so much, Adran, for all the effort that you've put into this. Doing a bilingual or trilingual call is always really complicated, and he's put a lot of effort on everyone here, so thank you for that. And it's the only way that we can actually be inclusive, because there is you know, trying to speak German or trying to speak English for everyone is not possible, and you don't include the people that are at the front lines who are not using these universal imperial languages. So I'm Esteban from Argentina. I've been based in Germany for the last 3 years after I had to leave my country for fighting fracking. And with many comrades from the Global South, Argentina, Latin America, Africa, and Asia, we have realized that there is a common denominator behind a lot of our frontline struggles against fracking, mining, deforestation, and many, many others. And that is the debt. The Global South is in a lot of debt, and this is a well-known mechanism of colonialism called debt trap diplomacy. As soon as we became independent from Spain, we went right into becoming a neo-colony of Britain. And this was done through loans, through debt. And it was so violent that, as you can read in the Open Books of Latin America, a famous book, you know, the few countries that didn't get into debt, there was war waged into them, organized by England, like in the case of Paraguay, where they led other countries to wage war so that they would be destroyed and be forced into debt. So we are really attacking the core of colonialism when we tackle debt, and also the core and the root of the climate crisis. So the Global South is in so much debt that it forces us to continue expanding the fossil fuel frontier. That's the connection between debt and the climate. So the fossil fuel frontier needs to keep expanding so that we can keep paying back just the interest on these loans. Most of these loans are totally illegal, unconstitutional, awarded to dictators and so on. Needless to say, talk about reparations and loss and damage for colonialism and slavery that other comrades will talk about later. But who owes really who? The Global North has a huge climate and social debt to the rest of the world. They're by far the largest emitters. So the G7 is by far the largest climate criminals the world has ever seen. And they're meeting here in Elmau to tell us how to lead the transition to our green world. This is bullshit. And it will be bullshit as long as we let them keep doing that. And that's why we are building an alternative from the grassroots, from the bottom up, and from the Global South. This campaign will not be led by Europe. This campaign is led by the Global South, and is connecting the workers with the climate movement for the first time at a large enough global scale. The workers in the Global South, more than anyone, understand the burden of debt. So it's what has allowed us to build that bridge, to actually mobilize the worker unions that are the ones that have the power to paralyze entire economies, are the ones that have the capacity to mobilize and organize like no one else can, who have survived genocides, dictatorships, and neoliberal periods. We need the worker unions to be in the climate fight. And this is what Debt for Climate may not be the only way to do that, but it's definitely one way that we have found to really powerfully come together globally. And I don't want to take forever because there's a lot of us that can explain this better than me, but we're mobilizing globally in over 30 countries, more than 40 actions all over the world to really politicize the climate movement toward the financial powers that are behind the climate crisis, as well as politicize the labor unions of the world, maybe beginning with the Global South, but maybe later Greece, you know, Portugal, Romania, the most indebted countries in the periphery of Europe can also benefit from this, to cancel all the debt in order to allow climate action to take place. Thank you. And who's next?
Thank you, Esteban. We will go to our next speaker, who is Julian Aguirre, if he's still online with us, to Argentina. Julian, can you? Siehst du, ob da ist? All right. So, Julian, thanks for joining us from the CTA. CTA, maybe like one information for the guests here, it's the biggest labor union in Argentina, and we are very thankful and honored to have Julian with us today. I will hand to you the word now. You're muted, Julian. Julian, I believe you are muted.
Julián, te escuchamos.
¿Me escuchan? ¿Me escuchan bien?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me well?
¿Me escuchan?
Can you hear me?
Yo te oigo perfectamente.
Yes, said Eric. I can hear you perfectly.
No escuché.
Sí, no, es que cambian las...
Sorry, I just didn't know whether you could hear me.
No sé lo que están haciendo, sabes, en Alemania, pero por lo visto que tuve el mismo problema que yo salía en el canal inglés.
Claro, no escuché la última. No, hubo unos minutos de silencio, pero ¿es mi parte para intervenir?
No, es que hubo, sabes, 2 minutos de silencio, pero antes han cambiado las opciones y, bueno, se estaban quejando porque supongo que tú no escuchaste lo que estaba diciendo de Ecuador, Vivi, que estuve traduciendo
Sí, claro.
Y... ¿Sí? ¿Lo escuchaste esto?
Bien. Un poco. Bueno, ¿es mi parte, es mi momento ahora?
Pues por el momento me parece que están esperando a que...
Bueno. Perdón,
hable, o sea
mil disculpas, no se había perdido.
No, tú pregunta todo lo que quieras, porque, ¿sabes? Está, bueno, por lo visto es la primera vez que lo hacen y bien, estamos todos así, y a ver si lo volvemos a hacer y que todo funcione bien la próxima vez.
Bueno, entonces pido de todas maneras disculpas por si ha habido algún malentendido. Les hablo, bueno, acá me presento, Julián Aguirre.
My name is Julián Aguirre.
¿No me escuchan?
Can you not hear me?
Te voy a preguntar por qué.
We can hear you well.
Ok, te escuchan, o sea que tú tira para adelante, que no te... Bueno, ok.
Yeah,
Adelante.
I could hear you. I'm now listening to the original, and I could hear you, Julian, and I could also hear Eric because I was on the original sound.
Buenísimo. Bueno, entonces, si es mi momento, hablaré.
I will start now, and I will speak quite slowly to make things easy for the interpreters. First of all, greetings to each and every one of you from Argentina. My name is Julián Aguirre. I am part of the Secretariat for International Relations, and I represented the CTA, the Autonomous Workers Union in Argentina. We have joined recently as a workers' organization, a trade union organization, and we are part of this campaign. We've only joined recently. Many of our comrades in Argentina invited us, and we met during previous activities as well. Those activities were also about financial debt, the financial debt of our own country, for example. And so we understand how this campaign was a logical evolution of the first call to action, if you like. We believe that this campaign has a lot of potential. We believe that it really contributes to strengthening the coordination and the alliances among a vast network of actors and stakeholders. There were trade union movements, environmental movements, movements for social justice. And the idea is that each and every one of us can contribute and act through a different focus and an agenda. And we can come together to build a common platform which really emphasizes the current crises and the current challenges that we are facing and the sectors which are suffering in our country and in our region in the global south and also in the global north. We understand that the challenges brought about by the climate crisis are also challenges that need to be dealt with by workers' organizations and trade union organizations. Because our people are on the front line, workers on the front line, economically speaking, and they are really suffering because of this corrupt, invasive, neo-colonialist attitude, which turns our countries and views our countries as mere reserves to be exploited. This is a crisis which affects the well-being of our people and the well-being of the environment. The real debt here is towards nature and towards the people. The crisis that we are facing is a crisis relating to a social and economic model which has had a devastating effects on the well-being of our people, and the well-being of workers, on the well-being of the poorest in our country and in our region. But it's also had a disastrous effect on nature as well. So we just want to question what's happening and question the behavior of big corporations. We wanted to come together in order to guarantee continuity, the continuity of life in and of itself, the life of the planet and the lives of human beings. So we're trying to do something as a trade union movement. The idea is that we can offer our experiences, that we can contribute by talking about our experiences of our battles alongside the experiences of environmental activists. So the idea is that we can contribute as well as a trade union organization. So we understand that the debt unjustly imposed upon our society and on our country is a massive obstacle, and it's preventing our country from putting in place the right policies in order to respond to an environmental crisis, but also to a social crisis, to a humanitarian crisis, to an economic crisis, and to a civilizational crisis as well. The idea is to bring together all of these different factors as well. And I must say that, unfortunately, the pandemic aggravated the very painful and severe consequences of this extractivism model. And it really highlighted what was going on. It really highlighted the impact on people. It really showed that this model is in conflict with nature and it's destroying things. We have a very broken relationship with nature. And people, rather the corporations just want to make more profit. So this model is broken. So we wanted to question the current injustices that we are seeing. We want to question the unjust situation with regards to nature as well. And from our perspective here, within our organization, we wanted to join this campaign. And I'd like to encourage my comrades to get involved as well. We wanted to take part in these decision-making processes because a lot of the time, the people are very marginalized. The interpreter is struggling to hear the speaker. This is a global problem, not just a regional problem. This is a global problem, and these problems and challenges are of a global nature.
Okay. Okay. I was not ready. Oh, okay, Julian, just be with us again, and then you can continue. All right. Okay, maybe we will hear Julian again. For now, I would like to ask Luise Wagner to join us in the panel here. So welcome. Luise Wagner is... It is on? Yeah. So Luise Wagner is a sociologist and a climate justice activist based in Berlin, and we are very happy to have her here. I would like to invite you for the talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience. This is just what happens when you organize internationally and multilingual. We just have to have a little bit of patience and just to wait for technologies to have our backs, or sometimes also not have our backs. I think the one contribution that I can maybe bring that is often forgotten in the discussions that we're hearing about debt and the intersection of the debt crisis with the climate crisis is, in addition to what Juan was just saying about the effectiveness of workers especially. Yeah? Better? Okay. Thank you. Sorry for reacting so late. Thank you. So when we speak about most effectiveness, most affected people, most affected areas, which is the long term for MAPA, there's just no way around talking about class, about gender, about race. So we're diving right into this, and Juan just made a really good contribution about how workers are most affected by the debt crisis. We know that workers or working class people are most affected by the climate crisis. And the one thing that we would like to emphasize is the gender aspect of it. So that we know that with the climate crisis, especially women, and also there speaking from the intersectionality of climate, the effectiveness by crisis, we know that especially also there, working class women, poor women, women of color, black women, and indigenous women are most hardly hit by the climate crisis. Water scarcity is the best example for it, or crop failure is a very good example for it, how women have to carry the burden of the impacts of the climate crisis. And it should come as no surprise that it's not very different with the debt crisis, because women are the most affected, and again, speaking along the lines of race, class, and gender at the same time, so poor women, working class women, indigenous women, black women, and women of color are most affected by the debt crisis. So just to give you a brief example, you can read this up. Silvia Federici has done a really good job in telling you about how this is happening. Camille Bruno, you can read it up with her. So women are the ones who are most employed in the sectors that are first cut when debt hits a country. It's the social sector, the public sector, that is affected first when a country goes into debt and cannot pay back their debts. Women are the ones that are also the ones who benefit most from this social arrangement with the states, and they are also the first to hit by sexist and patriarchal violence that comes with poverty and going into precarious labor. This is just when that hits a country, and austerity policies are imposed by the IMF, the World Bank, directed or owned by the G7, who are meeting here this weekend. It's just that there's an incredible increase of precarious work that women have to engage in. There's a documented increase of women are being forced to sell their bodies in order to be able to take up more loans to pay their debts. Argentina is a very good example of that. In Argentina, you had a law that gave housewives, so women who are doing reproductive work and care work at home for their families, they had a right to pensions, even though they're not paying taxes in that sense, because they didn't have an income. Now in 2017, the first thing that got cut with the IMF was this, that women, housewives, were not allowed to have pensions anymore. So they had to engage in even more precarious labor, and they were given loans at the same time by the state. Women who were benefiting from social spendings of the state, they were given loans with a 40% interest rate. So this comes then at the same time with being most affected by the climate crisis, and you just you add, if you can, those two crises, and you're faced with an incredible violence, structural violence that is done to women, poor women, working class women, through the intersection of the climate crisis and the debt crisis. So abolishing or cancelling the debt and abolishing the institutions that are driving these policies is thus not only a major step towards climate justice, as Esteban has explained, since debt is always used to further extract, but also thus a really big step that we can take in for social justice and to empower women. It's a very, in its core, a feminist act to cancel that, because women are the most affected by it. So this is just a contribution that I would like to take, and that we should never forget when you talk about the debt crisis and when we talk about most affected people and areas, to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Luise. I would like to give back the word to Julian, because unfortunately the connection was cut and we couldn't hear your final remarks, Julian. Excuse us. Please, the word is yours. Okay. Julian, can you hear me now?
The word. We cut you off.
Julián,
ahora puedes seguir hablando. Desmuteate, por favor. Gracias.
Okay, dear comrades, I know that we've had some technical difficulties. At one point you couldn't hear me properly. I get the impression that these problems happen quite often. It's just something that is part and parcel of hybrid events and online events as well. But first of all, greetings. And I just wanted to pass on a message of admiration, because it's amazing what you've done, what you've coordinated. You've coordinated a global campaign. That's not easy. And it's really great because you're bringing together countries from the north and countries from the global south as well. You're bringing together social partners which have different experiences, different points of view. And I really see the potential of this campaign. And this is very opportune for us. It's good for us to be able to learn from others, to contribute as well, and to learn from what others have to say. And it's really good to be able to come together rather, and build bridges and unite our forces jointly. And we know that that is the first step. We have the G20 summit as well. But that's just the start. That's just the start. That's not the end. That's just the start of this campaign, which will last for several years. This is such an important and necessary campaign. The idea is not just to call on states. The idea is to call on multilateral banks, multilateral institutions as well. We wanted to address them as well. The idea is to call on them to make more of an effort. And that is so important. What we are doing will not just benefit one particular sector, one particular group in our population. We're not just addressing one question. What we're putting on the table is the idea of questioning how things have functioned over the last few years. The idea is to question this model. That's what we're putting on the table. We're also suggesting an alternative model, a different way of understanding how we can relate to each other as societies, as people. And the idea is to protect the environment as well, and nature. The idea is also to question how we fit into nature as well. The idea is also to question the basis of our social system. So greetings to each and every one of you, greetings to all of our comrades in Europe and wherever you are, and greetings from Argentina. And we are very committed to this fight. Thank you very much, and greetings once again.
Julian, thank you a lot. Thank you for taking the time with us. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. But I think at the end the message was very clear here. And all right. Now we will go back to Munich. We are here honored to welcome Ina. I will give you the word.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Ina, climate justice activist from Namibia. And I think my contribution would be when looking at the climate crisis. I mean, Germany is drying out, so Stuttgart is running out of water. Your forests are dying. We can clearly say that all of us are on the front line of the climate crisis. And right now, we have the G7 happening. We have the war in Ukraine happening. And obviously, Germany is talking about coal expansion. So we're talking about Lützerath, a town that is being destroyed, towns that are being destroyed, fields where people are growing food that are being destroyed. Germany's got a lot of problems with homelessness, poor people in the streets. You know how shocking it is for an African to see that. So much injustice happening. And your government is talking about destroying systems that are already in place. And what they're also not saying is that now they're coming for Africa. They want African gas because they can't get the Russian gas anymore. Africa has to be part of the transition. We have to talk about loss and damage and phasing out everywhere, not only here on this side. Where I'm coming from, we are busy fighting a company called Recon Africa that has started gas and oil exploration in one of the most biodiverse hotspots. And when we look at the royalties, for example, Recon Africa has got 90% and the government has got 10%. During apartheid, it was 95 to 5%. Neo-colonialism, right there. We did have leaders in Africa who did speak about being in charge of their own resources. We are talking about Patrice Lumumba, whose tooth was just brought back to his family. They killed the man, shot him, put him in the ground, took him out, cut him up, and dissolved him in acid. And today they're bringing back a tooth. What is that? Congo, until today, they are feeding the global north. All of us, we want electric cars, we want phones, but it's children in Congo that are busy digging up those minerals. This debt is a man-made tool to continue controlling our leaders. And like I mentioned Patrice Lumumba before, there's also Thomas Sankara. He also died mysteriously, killed. We can talk about Gaddafi. He was also killed. Why? Oil and control. Now there's even a rumor that the Tanzanian president was recently killed because he also did not sing to the music of the G7 leaders. Apparently he died of COVID. Shame. A week after he died, ECOP is like, yeah, it's really gonna happen. I'm not talking about the pipeline in Uganda. So me myself as an African who was born in times of conflict because of geopolitics, all I can say is that the G7 leaders have to talk about colonialism, cancel the debt, because we don't owe them anything. How can we pay to continue sustaining a system that has caused so many, that is actually bloody, that has killed people globally, and today we still have to worship these people in their castle in Elmau, when they should be talking about how they can finance the transition in the global south. We can see what is happening in Bangladesh today. So many people have lost their homes, their livelihoods. People have died. The Horn of Africa, drought is ravaging our continent. And G7 leaders are talking about getting gas from Africa. It is, like we say in German, eine Unverschämtheit. So from my perspective as an African, I just want to hear loss and damage, reparations for our people. We just don't want a tooth. Show us the money, G7. Thank you.
Thank you, Ina, for bringing up this very important topic. If I may add something to that, because you talked now about several countries, several events in the history of the African continent. I was just reading a few days ago that Haiti, in the Caribbean, and they were forced to pay up to 80% of their expenditures to finance the debt that was forced upon to them after they liberated themselves from colonialism in 1804, and for over 100 years, until the beginning of the 20th century, over 80% of the expenditures were going to finance the debt and the interest rates which were already brought about. So, and this has been the case also in many African countries, and maybe in the discussion we can go also more into this topic. Yeah, thank you, Ina. I would like now to give the word back to Zoom and to Sonny Morgan. Sonny Morgan is a climate justice activist joining us from South Africa. He's also part of Extinction Rebellion and a campaigner for Debt for Climate, and also part of various other climate groups. So, Sonny, the word is yours.
Ready for me to talk? Yes. Yes. Okay. Vivi, yeah, Vivi still here, and she, yeah. So, am I ready to start talking? Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope that in Munich you can hear me clearly. We have no way of knowing whether you can hear us or not, but I'm going to proceed. If you can't hear me, please get hold of the interpreters and they will let me know. So, I speak as a climate justice activist from various organizations to bring solidarity greetings from those organizations. I want to talk to you about the Debt for Climate impact of the campaign and of debt itself in Africa. Just this week, the IEA released its outlook on Africa, its energy outlook on Africa for 2022 going forward. I'm going to read you one or two paragraphs from it, and then we can have a discussion. I'll give you my views. So I'm starting to read from a portion of the report. It goes as follows. Africa is already facing more severe climate change than most other parts of the world, despite bearing the least responsibility for the problem. With nearly 1/5 of the world's population, today, Africa accounts for less than 3% of the world's energy-related carbon dioxide emissions to date, and has the lowest emissions per capita of any region on the planet. Africans are already disproportionately experiencing the negative effects of climate change, including water stress, reduced energy food production, increased frequency of extreme weather events, and lower economic growth, all of which are fueling mass migration and regional instability. This is the reality today in Africa. In South Africa, we have already experienced loss of debt in the last 2 months. Over 600 people died because of extreme weather events. So when we talk about the debt and the forgiveness of the debt, the cancellation of the debt, we are already experiencing the climate shocks, the climate impacts that one could lay the blame squarely at the global north, extractivist communities, years and years of exploitation. We can lay these loss of life, loss of livelihoods, poverty, malnutrition, homelessness, mass migration. That's a debt in real terms that the global north has to pay and is responsible for. In line with this quote from this report, I want to tell you this important thing. Africa is home to 60% of all the best solar resources globally. So the ability to produce energy from solar is referred to as the solar resource. We hold in Africa 60% of the global solar resource, yet only 1% of installed world PV solar panel installations, only 1%, yet we have 60% of the resource. Why is that? Simply because we do not have the policies, we do not have the finance, we do not have the funding, the climate funding, the money and the resources to roll out this much needed technology to all our people. And we don't have that money. We don't have those resources simply because we are continuously having to take the money that we do have, very meager resources, very little of the finances, and we have to repay the odious debt, the illegal debt, the debt for the wrong technologies. We have to repay the financial burden as profits, as interest, so that the global north banks, funders, corporations and governments can benefit as profit. Each year they report greater gains. And the result of that is that we slip deeper into poverty. We slip deeper into situations where we can't develop. The only way Africa can develop is if it has the financial resources to do that. And what's the easiest way to provide the financial resources? The money is already in the system, but we are moving it from our countries to the global north. This is a movement of capital, it's a movement of extractivism, it's a movement of value away from where it's needed on the ground in people's lives for healthcare, for medicine, for vaccines, for food, for access to clean energy, clean running water. And it's away from those fundamental basic human rights, those things that you in the global north take for granted. And value is pilfered and appropriated from the global south to the coffers of the global north. How is this different from colonialism? How is this different from the 1885 European conference in Brussels, where Africa was carved up into profitable portions and given to various colonial regimes? How is that different? Today, we have the same carving up of the continent for the benefit of the global north. I read from a different report, also by the IEA, also out this week, that says this about the global energy situation. Easing the burden on consumers is an immediate priority for many policymakers. The total energy bill paid by consumers is likely to top 10 trillion US dollars for the first time in 2022, hitting the poorest parts of society the hardest and putting pressure on governments to cushion this blow. How? via fiscal measures and price interventions. So this is legalese and it's financial speak for ways that the levers that governments and states may have to alleviate the poverty and the cost of electricity. But there's actually an easier way. And the easier way is two things, is to make energy cheaper. In these reports, other stats show that solar energy is the cheapest energy on the planet. The cheapest energy on the planet. It accounts for more than 60% of all new energy that has been produced on the planet. But we can't afford it because we continuously to service odious, illegal, and illegitimate debt. So instead of governments faffing around with fiscal measures and price interventions, let's get the global north to cancel the debt of the global south in line with their climate debt obligations. And it will wipe out all the debt, but it doesn't relieve them of the burden, because this, as my friend Patrick Bond says, is just a down payment on their total responsibility for the reparations of the climate debt, slavery, colonialism, and the extractivist damage to our ecology and our environments for generations. We hold the global north responsible. We expect them to come to the party. We expect them to pay. That is why I, an activist in South Africa, Southern Africa, on the continent, and part of the collective global South, is supporting, promoting, amplifying this campaign to cancel the debt. It's the right thing to do. It simply is absolutely essential for us to keep the fossil fuels in the ground. We have to rapidly transition away from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And we need to do that post-haste. And we do that when you cancel our debt. Thank you. Not sure, Lulu.
Thank you, Sunny, for these clear words and also clear demand on the leaders of the G7 countries, which are meeting in a few days, and maybe for us also to take some inspiration for our next actions, which we will talk about later. Thank you, Sunny. I would like to give the word to Vivi Jaramillo. She is based in Ecuador, and she's a climate justice activist, a human geographer, and she has been part of several groups, including Extinction Rebellion. The floor is yours, Vivi. Welcome.
Okay.
Try again, Vivi. Esteban, can you hear me?
Quizás si salís. Right now, yeah, no, negative. Lilo, I think all the people that are left in the meeting are fluent English speakers, so we don't need to waste your time anymore. And maybe this will simplify the call.
Can you speak now? We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, now I turned up.
Go ahead, Vivi.
Can I start? Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna start. So I was saying that it's hard to speak to a crowd that I can't see,
And even more so with all these technical difficulties, it's a little strange, but it's completely fine and I understand, and thank you so much to the people who have organized this. So my name is Vivi. I live in Quito, Ecuador. I am part of Extinction Rebellion Ecuador, as well as Extinction Rebellion Latin America, and I am regional liaison for Extinction Rebellion Latin America with global support. So I'm all over the place, and we've been very eager to participate in the Debt for Climate campaign from Latin America. Like you've heard from other people, their situation related to debt in Argentina is very important, and it's a similar situation in other countries. So just a little brief context on what we're doing in Latin America this coming weekend and Monday and Tuesday is that we will be taking action in 16 different local groups across Latin America, and we're spread out between 5 countries. Now, my action that I was going to take part in Ecuador has been very affected by the protests that are happening right now in Quito. Today is the 11th day of protests that people are asking the government to take up demands. And since this situation is so related to what the basis, the foundation of Debt for Climate, I thought I'd speak about that today with the remaining time that I have. So basically, we have a president who is very much in line with the IMF, who has basically made it his mission to make sure that Ecuador looks really good to the IMF, so that the IMF will lend us more money, so that the IMF will that will look great for them. And the couple of things that he has done to make sure that that happens is that the first trimester of public spending here in Ecuador was the lowest in our history as a country, as a republic. Like, we have never had such low public spending. Another thing that the president here has done is that he has said that now, since renewable energy is coming into fashion, that we should take this time, we need to hurry up and extract all of the oil in our country. So this is exactly what we mean by debt trap diplomacy. These are real life examples of what happens when a country has to fulfill the needs of the IMF before it can fulfill the needs of its actual people. This is why so many groups have come to Quito, to the capital, to the center of power, to demand that the president stop these policies and start implementing different policies. And I think it's also a really interesting example of how Debt for Climate is a good compromise between short-term goals versus long-term goals. Despite us knowing that the effects of climate change are already here, the real heavy effects of climate change are still to come and will come in the next century. But we are also suffering with big issues now. So this is why, for example, in Ecuador, the protesters, the indigenous movements, their first demand is that oil subsidies continue. And this is because there is no just transition if oil subsidies are lifted one day to the next, and people don't have time to adjust. If other measures like a train isn't given as an opportunity as an option for people to get their food from the fields to the city. So this is why I really like Debt for Climate as an initiative, because it tries to get a compromise between these things. It tries to say, hey, let's look at our other solutions, in this case, canceling external debt, so that the people in Ecuador or the people in other countries can find solutions that can make their livelihoods better, while we can also focus on making the future better and mitigating the effects of climate change. So I think this is basically why I really support Debt for Climate. I think it's a really interesting demand. It's a concrete demand, it's a specific demand, and it speaks to something that can really bring us together, as has been spoken before. So yeah, I think that's all I really want to say today. I think that in Ecuador, we have, and in all of the global south, there's an ecological debt that needs to be paid to us. And as has been mentioned before, this is a great way to start trying for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bibi. for these inspiring words, and I love the image of you all gathering in Quito, asking the president, putting pressure on the president, and I think we can learn here much and be inspired by it, because here we have the leaders of the 7 leading industrial countries in the world gathering. So we will take your actions as an inspiration for this weekend and the next week. Thank you so much. So let's go back to Munich, to Susanne. Susanne Egli is an activist in Munich and also part of Extinction Rebellion.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think almost everything was already said, and those guys can explain it much better than I can. So I'm representing more or less Extinction Rebellion Germany here today. We all know it, and we heard it already, that the G7 states who are meeting here now in the next days, and all the countries of the global north were exploiting the global south countries for decades now to maintain our wealth, to expand fossil fuel industry. We all know that. So I think it's time now, it's our responsibility now to really stand up, to support campaigns like that, to go on the streets and to really like connect with each other and help the people who are really already suffering today from the climate crisis, who are suffering for many, many years, and all the other reasons that that the guys already explained to you. So that's why Extinction Rebellion Germany is of course fully supporting the campaign and all the goals. We will have some actions in the next days together with some other groups. So like almost every day there will be a different action. Extinction Rebellion will do a little bit of their own action next week, but you know that we cannot talk so much about all the stuff because you see that police is everywhere. They are like controlling us all the time, not just activists, also like people who just want to come home like from work. So this is just all the stuff that's happening here. It's already weird, insane, and takes a lot of our rights. It was really hard for us to even do some demonstrations, to come close to the place where they are meeting. So yeah, as I said, they take a lot of our rights, so that's why it's even more important to go there, to draw attention to the campaign, to draw attention to all the stuff that happened in the last years, to all the things the G7 states did wrong, and not just letting them be there and letting them like tell that they would do something good there, that they would be the leaders of a new world and stuff like that. So this is what they tell people, what they tell the media. So also when we have like 20,000 extra policemen here at the moment, we still have to go there, have to show our support, and so it's really important that you come and like tell it to everyone, so that we are thousands of people on the roads in the next days, and yeah, and support the campaign and everything around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanne. I think we just now move from the panel and open it up for everybody who's here and those who are maybe listening on Zoom to see if you have questions to our panelists, to us on Zoom and here in Munich. Feel free. Malina, I will give you the mic.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your great work today and also during the last weeks and months, I guess. I'm Malina from Jubilee, Germany. It's an organization working on debt for more than 20 years now, and working for debt cancellation and also for structural changes in the international financial architecture, that we have transparent democratic mechanisms for debt cancellations, also not just as a one-time issue, but like for repeated issues. So, okay, I wanted to ask you what you exactly demand from which actor, let's say it like this, or what should we maybe as a that movement in general demand from the different actors, because I think some of you said we demand the global north to cancel the debt of the global south, and somehow it sounds like, I know it's not meant like this at all, but somehow it sounds even like a charity act. The global north have to cancel the debt, but maybe even it's like also the global south, it's a right of the global south, right? So so I think we should be very precise who should who should do what, and also I think governments in the global south should also say that they do not accept this, that they should, from my perspective, default. They should prioritize as far as they could. I know it's like they are bonded, kind of, but I think this is one demand or one actor which we should demand to do something, and maybe even more, not me from Germany. Of course, I focus on our governments, and of course we focus to tell them to cancel the debt, to accept debt cancellations. And just one last thing, because we have many different creditors. We have the official creditors, we have the private creditors, and in our work in the last 2 years, we noticed that our governments, at least rhetorically, like they say, rhetorically, yes, thank you. They would see the need for debt cancellation and they would support it. And what they kind of play, the game they play, is to say it's China. China is the biggest official lender, so sorry, we would support it, but we just can't because we are not important anymore. Of course, it's completely bullshit. But so I just want to say we should be very precise who should do what. And I think governments in the global south should say they don't accept it, they just default. And our governments in the global north, they should, of course, support debt cancellation, and especially the point that I see them to be really responsible for is the private sector, who holds more than 60% of the debt from the global south, and to make private creditors cancel the debt, because this is just something they make if they would not be responsible for them, but that's a thing where the money comes from, actually, from the private sector. So I wanted to ask how you see, which other actors do you see, and who should do what? Who do you demand to do what? Yeah, sorry for the.
Yeah, thank you, Malina. I will give the word to you and maybe add something to it, because you mentioned the default. If countries of the global south could just default on the debt, and if I'm right, Esteban, Argentina did that once. Maybe you can refer also to that.
So the question is super important, and this is where our goal is. The campaign is totally decentralized. So never will Germany tell Argentina or Namibia or South Africa how they should go about their transition and how to go about canceling the debt. But I think everyone here understands that this is not a matter of truth. It's not a matter of the science that is overwhelmingly on our side. This is about power. And neither can Jubilee for Climate, nor Eurodad, nor any organization have the power to make this happen. The power needs to be built on the streets, and that's why we need the working class. We need the worker unions. And this will not happen just because we are right. We know we are right. And we agree with this vision that we need to make countries default, but the pressure has to come from within each country, and it will only happen when the Namibian environmental movements and climate and labor and whatever, and the same in Argentina and South Africa and so on, can have enough pressure behind a common goal with your support in the centers of power of Europe, like in the G7 or Brussels, of Paris, London, Washington, DC, where we're also mobilizing this coming weekend. And so we need to build pressure from within, as well as the support from without that is actually internationalizing the demands. Like Sri Lanka right now is a revolutionary example, but many people don't even hear about it because the media don't talk about them. So my answer to you is we need to build the power from within each of those countries, because our governments are often put in place, they're not angels. They're put in place by the same companies and the same global north interests to keep us as slaves, unless they are Thomas Sankara or Lumumba. We know how they ended up. The rest of them are prostitutes to the global north. And so unless we build the power on the streets to balance that out, it will never happen with a good report, with a good PDF, or with the IPCC data. So to go to your question is, how do we start? Well, it starts wherever it gets stronger. You will see these demonstrations that are coming up, that Argentina is going to mobilize thousands of people, workers, labor unions, you know, climate activists, social movements coming together. That's where power is being really built. Maybe other countries will follow as this gets built over a long period of time, and hopefully we can do this together as well, because we need your support in Germany. We need the support of institutions and the global north. And then the transition will be determined by those very forces of how that money should be used, how the transition should, what it should look like, but it will not be done by anyone in the global north telling Argentina or South Africa what it should be. And just to answer to his question, 20 years ago, we defaulted on the IMF loan when we were millions on the streets. I was there, I was 16 years old, and we were tear gassed and rubber bullets by the police, and the president was flying out of the presidential house in an airplane, in a helicopter, and we ousted the IMF. So we became an example to the world about that. Unfortunately, now we are back in the grip of the IMF because of another corrupt government with the biggest loan in the history of the world awarded by the IMF. And only millions on the streets will change the course of this. But this time, we cannot just be there for one day and go home. We need a movement, we need a vision, we need a strategy. That's what climate is coming together to do. And I think you want.
Whom are we targeting? Can we talk about the colonizers? Did Africa ever get reparations for colonialism? No. I mean, Germany and Namibia started making deals, but they ghosted the communities. They were talking to our corrupt government and not to the communities that were affected. And also, if you look at how Germany compensated the victims from the Second World War compared to how they would like to compensate the overheaded people, oh my goodness, black lives don't matter. This shows it clearly. Europe has colonized us. They caused genocides. Even until today, people are dying. Who is selling those weapons to our countries? Who? Where there's conflict, there are minerals, because you can take out the minerals as much as you want without having to control. So who are we targeting? Me personally, I want a pardon from those governments whose ancestors killed my people. Colonialism, that is the problem. And today it's called neo-colonialism because they are coming here saying Africa needs to develop its gas industry. We need to develop. Do we? It's like I said, Germany, you're also right now on the front line of the climate crisis. Your forests are dying out. Hello? It is very nice weather. Do you know that it was snowing in Namibia yesterday? People are dying because we are not acclimatized to snow in Namibia. And the G7 leaders are here talking about a transition. Transition for who? Transition again for the people or for the governments. Let me say governments, because back then they were kingdoms, right? Most of them. Those people are talking about how they can continue exploiting gas, creating a carbon bomb in Africa. Are we going to benefit from it? No, we don't have the infrastructure. Nigeria, do they have a refinery? They have been getting the oil out since the 60s. They killed Kensarowiwa because he stood up against Shell. They killed the leaders of the Ogoni 9. When is Africa going to stop being a slave to this system? When are we going to stop paying for your comfort here on this side? So that is where we should start. Look at history. And like I've been saying, because people that don't understand what we feel, if you study your history, like properly, and learn about the atrocities that those colonizers inflicted upon our people, you will find a lot of similarities with how these corporations are actually doing their business until today. We don't want the gas. Keep it in the ground. The whole world needs to stand up because all of us are on the front line today. Yes, with us it comes with human rights violations. Our waters are being poisoned. We are already facing droughts. It's nothing new. And you? Are you guys ready? I mean, you depend on cards. I'm gonna pay for my food. Your rivers are polluted. You can't even, they can't even feed you. And I mean, you are not even thinking, oh, these are systems that used to feed communities, and you can't anymore. Or even the fact that the German government is not doing anything in regards to Lützerath. Where is Germany going to get food from? I mean, Ukraine definitely can't do that, but your government is clearly endorsing the expansion of coal, destroying fields where people are growing food. You have unemployment issues here. Don't just look at us poor Africans. You here are the ones that are poor. You are the ones that are slaves to a system that has created this. We have survived colonialism. We have survived for hundreds of years, and we will survive neocolonialism. But we need accountability. That is my response.
Thank you, Ina. I think these are many words and thoughts that we have to take with us and reflect them. And just to take up your last word, I think accountability is one of the many things taken from your talk, which we need to bring to the gates of G7 in the summit and ask them for accountability, even though me personally, I don't have a lot of hope, because the hope is where you described how people are gathering together and putting so much pressure that they have no other alternative than, for example, canceling the debt and really taking climate crisis seriously. And if they really care about the climate crisis, then they should cancel the debt. That would be a big step, as also Sunny explained in his talk. Further questions? Lee, please.
Hello. Just want first to make a remark on debt cancellation. Since we are in Germany, very special country in terms of debt cancellation, because after the World War II, I think Germany got a big debt relief, and that's why Germany developed a very proper economy and made its way to the social democracy, and we have a beautiful country. Or you have a beautiful country now. And my question is, I scrolled on the website of the Debt for Climate movement, and it is not about, it's also about the debt which Global South owed to the Global North. But I think I saw some statement, I read some statement that actually what is now going on is actually the North, the Global North, should not only cancel the existing debt, but also pay for the debt created during the colonization and the past. This is the second part of the debt. So I want to ask, how did you get that money from countries like Germany? I mean, if you just go there and say, give us the money, sounds a little unrealistic, but it should work.
What we need is top-down action. Okay. What we need is top-down action. Initiatives that are already working should receive the support. Obviously, we have the problem with the corrupt governments, and that is why people should be involved in these negotiations, not governments. No, people. And there are so many communities globally that are already working on many projects. And those ones, they should be supported. And I've also seen them here in Germany. I'm not just talking about Namibia. So for me, that is how I imagine it, a healthy dialogue where people from bottom up are supported. Like in Namibia, we have the problem with the drought. So to even dig a hole just to create a borehole is very expensive. People, they can't afford it. We don't need so much energy because of our lifestyles. We live in harmony with our environments, and I'm talking about me as an indigenous person. And I can talk about everyone, I mean all the 5 continents. I've also seen homes in Sweden where they don't need gas, but they are built in such a way that they keep the warmth. So why can't those projects be pushed instead of gas development, more colonialism? That would be my response to you.
I think it's very important to bring up the particular history of Germany as well, because they are very keen on silencing that their entire wealth is more or less based on not only on colonization but also on debt cancellation. Half of their debt was cancelled after the Second World War. The reasons for that, of course, are very different from what we are demanding, and the consequences as well. But Germany is also a special, or not just a special case, but is just one case that shows how easy money production can be if the political will is there and the economic interest in the way is there. When the war in Ukraine started, we just mobilized 100 billion euros for militarization. Money can be created very easily, but in our imagination as activists, maybe, or even maybe in the governments, we just have lost the imagination that money can be created for something that's actually good, which would be reparation, loss and damage funds, but also there was the promise is just there, has been, I think, established in 2015 with the Paris Agreement, that $100 billion, I think, per year would be paid for climate finance, and they have not paid it, and they have taken this money from other funds that were supposed to be used for other things. So money creation and actually demanding that this money is being created is a very realistic thing, because it's being created all the time. We could see it with the pandemic. Money was created like that to save corporations. We saw it in the 2008. Money was created like that to bail out banks. Money creation is not the problem. The political will and the economic interest behind it is the problem. So if we create the pressure for that, it's just realistic to just say, we need the money, you create it, we get it.
Misha.
My English is not the best, I try. I agree that the Western or the global North has to pay her debt for colonialization, for neo-colonial trade politics, for the climate justice as well, but I did not understand why this call for paying the debt is connected with any, was heißt Forderungen? With any demands for the global south. For example, to let oil in the floor or anything else, all those resources. I don't understand this connection, because I think the global north has a debt of the last 100, 200 years. And this debt is growing each day with the climate change and the trade, the way how trade is functioning in capitalism. So why connecting it with demands to the south?
Yes, so that's Yeah, so why is it connected? So we know the climate debt of the global north. We've been talking about it for 2 hours. And we also know, sorry, yeah. Same, can you hear? Okay, so the debt is at the root of the expansion of the fossil fuel industry. The debt is a burden on the neck of our governments that forces them to continue servicing the debt. We need to pay back the interest. We're never paying back the capital. It's just always an endless race to pay back the interest to keep us in debt. We are still owing money from 200 years ago that never got repaid. But it got repaid multiple times over just with the interest. In the global north, you borrow money for 0% interest rate in some countries, like the US, the UK, Germany, have very low interest rates, but the global south is the opposite. So that's the perversity of the system. That is a business for the global north, and it's a chain on the neck for the global south. This is a political stranglehold also, because the IMF and the World Bank impose on our governments that we need to continue extracting the fossil fuel industries. Well, it's all part of the same. When we talk about debt, we have to ask who owes who. And we're not connecting with the global south. We are the global south. So we are not connecting anything with the global south. We are the global south taking power and building power and coming here to you, to the centers of power, to say, you're going to listen to us now. You're going to help us if you can. But this is going to be led by us. And so the debt has many multiple layers. It has the reparations, it has the climate that we've been talking about, the expansion of the fossil fuel industry. And unless you connect these things, you're never going to get anywhere. You know, we're kind of fucked. And nothing is happening, and the climate movement is dying down. XR, Fridays for Future, Ending Elende, they're dying down. Everyone doesn't have a fucking clue what to do, and we're coming up with something to find a solution. So that's why Debt for Climate is so important, and it's exciting so many people, because we're connecting the things that are totally disconnected so far. And it's the very problem that everyone is in bubbles. You know, we are all in bubbles and things don't belong together. Well, things belong together because the Global North committed to climate financing. You know, in the Paris Agreement, they committed to providing over 100 billion euros a year of financing. That's also one of the demands of Debt for Climate, that they need to act. They're not even living up to that, and they want to give that to us in the form of more loans. So all of these demands can and are being grouped together under an umbrella campaign that can galvanize enough power on the streets to get stuff to happen. And I'm happy to talk more with you if you want after.
I think the other link, Esteban just mentioned it, but just an example. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so just an example. The debt needs to be cancelled because, first of all, we don't owe anything. And also, like Esteban said, it is a tool that is being used to force our governments into producing more fossil fuels. And I mean, we all agree this practice has to stop because it is detrimental to all of us. You know, in Namibia, foreigners have got more right to the land than we, the people. And what is that land being used for? Mining, again. Who is making the money? The mining companies, which come from outside. Neo-colonialism. You know, Germany going for African gas now because they refuse to be part of the transition. They are forcing us into a system which, in my view, is actually a replica of what happened in World War II in Germany. Extermination of the African people, of the indigenous people. Who gives them the right to poison our waters, to take away our land so we can't even grow food? The link is the fact that they are using it as a tool to continue supplying our former colonizers with the comfort because we don't deserve anything. I don't know if that makes sense to you, how I'm saying it, but for me, this is the link. The chain has to be broken. And this is not only for us, because it is already affecting people globally. Islands are sinking. Islands are sinking. Germany is drying out. I know that for you it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But it is. Our future, our present is your future. And the fact that people are just so relaxed about these extreme weathers is very worrisome. Because we know what it means to look for water. We know what it means to struggle just to get some crops growing so we can feed our families. So that is why we need to really start talking about how can we as a community, global north, global south, but as humanity, how can we move forward? How can we make history right? How can we heal as a collective and stop oppressing the ones that have been already slaving for centuries just to provide a few? And it's like Esteban said, we are doing it because we don't know what to do anymore. But we need to speak about everything.
All right, then I think, we should come to an end. Malina, one more question, and maybe then demand to us for action for the weekend, and then we are off.
Sorry to get again, but as I understood you, because we also had in the beginning with this new movement, Debt for Climate, we are also a little bit like, are they kind of pushing for what the World Bank and IMF are calling it with debt swaps for climate initiatives? Because I'm sure that you are not, but I think this was a little bit the question behind before, because we see like the World Bank and the IMF, they are also using these terms. They are also saying we want debt cancellation for climate justice or for climate protection, and in the end we will probably end up with some greenwashing strategy and with some new form of neocolonialism. And so as I think this was kind of the question what you had, and we had it in the beginning when you came up with this initiative. We also had this question, but then when we spoke, I understood that you kind of demand debt cancellation as a precondition for that there could be climate justice, for that there could be climate protection, and So I think this was a little bit the question which I heard before, because there are always like we see it with the German presidency, they are also using our terms now. They're saying like for global justice or something, and this is always these like different actors use the same terms but mean very different things.
You try to convict me of something. I'm convicted since 30 years. You don't, what? Convinced me. I'm convinced already since 30 years, and I don't understand why the global south not just come to the global north and says, hey, you are in debt of us for colonialization of the last 200 years and never stopped, and we wanted you pay your doubt. Unless any conditions, it doesn't matter if Ecuador lets the oil in the soil or not, the global north has to pay. If Ecuador does or not, doesn't matter. That's what I was asking, why you connect this demand to the global north, which is totally right, with points where the global north can make a new neocolonialistic thing on it.
Yeah. Okay, Esteban?
Thank you for bringing this up and for explaining. It wasn't clear that this was where you were going at. So it has to be very clear. We are the exact opposite of what you were describing. The IMF and the World Bank and others and many NGOs and many governments are coming up with this debt for nature swaps. And this is exactly more of the same greenwashing, violating indigenous sovereignty, land grabbing kind of thing that has always been part of the same thing. So what we are doing is building real power from the bottom up to make real changes, not this debt for nature swap. And it's a very practical campaign. You know, there is a reason that thousands will mobilize on Monday and Tuesday and this weekend. It's because thousands of people are getting it, and they agree. And because for centuries we have demanded this debt from the global north, and nothing is happening. So to answer to your question, you will see it on the streets. Your question will not be answered on this table. You will see it in the coming months and years as we build power to make that happen. What we are trying to do is answer your question in reality, not at an NGO that publishes a nice PDF or makes a nice career for someone or gets some funding from someone. We are coming from the streets and going to build a mass movement that needs to be the one that takes this on their own hands, with all the NGOs helping, with all the institutions helping, but this will be decided by the masses. The masses are not at the table in the decision making. You see the climate crisis, the climate fight is being decided by a few white Europeans, the way of the climate movement, everything here. So the people that are most affected by the climate crisis and by that are not sitting at the table to decide their own future. This is so elitist and exclusionary and racist that this is what Debt for Climate is doing. It may not answer your question in theory today here, but we will answer it on the streets. And believe in us and join us, because together we can stop this insanity. And is it okay if we...
Yeah, thank you, Esteban. Just with the look at the clock, we are about to come to an end. I think these were the sentences we should go out with, and all the thoughts that you shared with us before. And to referring to your bubbles, I think this is one of the main successes already of the Debt for Climate campaign that you are campaigning for, when you are talking about different bubbles. And here, from my view, like the climate movement is not really aware of debt and social justice issues, and the labor unions are becoming maybe a little bit more active with regard to climate, but not really. But what you are doing is bringing them exactly together and finding a common denominator, and this is something I think powerful, and it can inspire us in the global north, sitting at the gates of power. And now offering, like also for us, having the best opportunity in the upcoming days to take up the word of action that Esteban and everybody else mentioned. Please go to the streets. Starting on tomorrow, there's an alternative economic summit here to learn more about how debt works, actually. And this is, I think, what also refers to what you described. It's not all the calls from the global south to the global north about canceling debts, they were never answered. So, and they are coming and now connecting something which tells us all, we are all in the same boat, yeah? Climate affects all of us. Some, like, as you said, are much more affected, of course, in the countries of the global south. So these questions will be also, I think, will rise up tomorrow. Saturday is a big demonstration here in the Theresienwiese, starting at 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock, right? Yeah. Please all join. Keep your eyes open for the Debt for Climate people there. This is one of the first opportunities to make aware of this campaign here in Germany, in Europe. And as Esteban already announced, there are much more actions to come in the upcoming months. So this is just a start. And but the start was already in the global south, and now we have to join. It's time for us to join. Yeah. Look out at the website Stop G7 Elmau. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I wanted to refer to that, but maybe you can say more concrete things about it. I wanted to refer to the Stop G7, Stop G7 Elmo website, where many things are mentioned there. You said already that actions cannot be really described here because of the like. We have to be aware of what they know, but maybe you can say something more about the next days. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So you said already everything about Saturday. So Esteban will also speak then, or you speak on? Yeah, you speak on Saturday, and then on Sunday there will be the big demonstration in Garmisch. So it's easier now to go there. We had a few problems with buses and train, everything was closed, and you have to expect a lot of police controls, so take your time to go there, but it's much easier now. There will be buses and a police convoy on Sunday starting from the Theresienwiese at 9 o'clock in the morning, so you can go there, you can join one of the buses or one of the cars, and the police said they will bring us there, and there will be just 1 or 2 controls. So we should be there at time, and then there is like a walk, and we will be there. So it's easier now to go there. Like a few days ago, we thought nobody can go there, but it's getting easier because we were really fighting for it. Especially the Stop G7 platform did a great job. On Monday there will be a Sternmarsch to Elmau. So it's also a bit easier now to go there, but you have to walk a while. We are coming closer to the castle from different sides. And there is even the possibility for 50 people to enter the security zone. I think we still have a few spots left. So, of course, Esteban and I think you will also be there, and Luis will also be there, me too. So we will go there with a few other people and try to come as close as possible to the castle, to like be loud and show that, that, as I said before, that we don't let just anything happen, but we are there and they should see and hear us. So maybe we can come even closer to the castle. We are still working on that. But this is also a possibility where you can come close, where you can show your support. So it would be great if a few people would come there. And then on Tuesday, this is the thing I cannot say, but if you join some channels, for example, the Klima-089 channel, it's a Telegram channel in Munich, then you know that what's going to happen. So if you want to wake up early and be somewhere in the city center on Tuesday morning, then maybe something nice could happen there. So we cannot say more about that. Don't tell any. I hope no police people are here, so because then we have a problem now. So yeah, this and as Adran already said, you can have all the information on the Stop G7 website. They also say when you can go with which bus to which spot. So they did it really well. So you get all the information there, and you can also ask me like after this here if you have some more questions.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. And also one announcement with regard to the caravan. Ina, you are a part of the caravan from the Global South, and I think we are very used here in the Global North to always speak and expect others to listen. I think this we should turn around and listen to what you bring with us. So you are being joined also with from different countries, Mexico, Palestine, and other countries. And you are until Saturday in Munich or tomorrow? Even until next week. Okay, so go to Ina, ask her about the places to meet and talk to the people of the caravan. I want to thank you all for joining us here in this late evening in Eine Welthaus. I want to send the thanks to everybody who joined us via Zoom, Vivi, Sunny, Julian, Juan Pablo, and of course you here, Luise, Ine, Esteban, and Susanne. I want to thank the technical staff who and Kevin, who moderated the chat, and all of you being here, taking your time. I am deeply sorry for the technical difficulties we had today. We had prepared a lot and wanted a lot with different languages, video recording and all that. We had problems with the firewall and all that, but my colleagues gave everything they did. They brought the whole equipment. So thanks to them, even though it didn't work as we expected. Please go to depthforclimate.org, check out what they are doing, what this is all about, spread the word, and hopefully what you already managed to do to connect us, the Global South and North, to spread out the word more, and this will happen also with your help. Thank you so much.